I just wanted to walk through the process of uh, basically what it looks like to sort of organize the next steps of a project. So right now, this is what I've got for the level editor, which you can see is quite just a long list of miscellaneous tasks. You can see here I've got level editor 0.1, which is the version that will allow me to do a basic spaceship build in this editor. So I'd like to break this down a little bit further, especially because since I am new to Unity, a lot of this stuff is taking me more time on these little details than I'm sort of used to. So let's go through the process of what it means to actually break down a project like this. So first of all, let's discuss versioning quickly. There's two different methods I've really seen that handle versioning. One is the incremental approach, where you start with 0.1, you go to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, all the way up to 0.11, 0.12, 0.13, and so on. So that number can go as high as you want to. And usually with like a web platform, you have you have 3 digits, kind of like this. And the first one's called the major ones, like version 1 is that 1.0.1, and then so you have major, minor, and patch. And a lot of times with that kind of web project or with like a library or something like that, you end up with something that looks a little bit like this: 1.14.18. And that means the first major version, the 14th minor edition, and then the 18th patch within that minor edition. So these are incremental, and that actually works pretty well when you're maintaining a library or something like that that doesn't really have an end goal, so to speak. The other version that you see is one that goes up to a goal. So in other words, version 1.0 is the quote-unquote finalized version of the product, and you are shooting for that, and so you design everything like this. So 0.01, 0.05, 0.95 is almost done, and the 0.1 is done. You still might have versions in there. You have 0.5.1, whatever it is, but you're sort of incrementing up based on how much of the project you think is done. So for games, sometimes I like to use that a little bit more, and that's kind of what I have here. So level editor 0.1 is actually, let's say, a tenth of the way through the thing, and I might change that. That might just be my first increment, sort of. But 0.1 is my target. I want to break that down a little bit more. So you can kind of use whatever task management system you want. Trello is a pretty good one, especially if we're working with a small team. I've used just text and markdown files before, but in this case I'm going to use Todoist. The principles are pretty much the same, which is be as specific and explicit as possible. So, if you recall from last time, when you run this, we have the ability to enter a name for the thing. Dessert. It creates it right there. And this thing is currently showing our grid. So let's make a new section. Let's call it 0.05. And we're going to say basic file structure and image import. So I'm not even going to mess with the actual map editor part of this until I have the ability to import images and actually set up my side packs and side items over here. So for that, we're going to want to revisit some of this stuff. So we're going to put that up here. This is the sprite sheet popover. That's what I originally called it, but that's a little bit confusing because sprite sheets are already a thing generally, as well as in Unity. So I'm calling them side packs to refer to something that's specific to this map editor. So we're going to say tap outside to close it, tap title to edit it. New sprite sheet opens in title editing mode. We don't actually need to do that one anymore because we have the text entry, and I don't really want to have the ability to tap the title to edit it. So, where we go? So we're going to say, instead, edit icon, tap edit icon to rename spreadsheet. So we're going to say, let's see, spreadsheet pop over. So I'm going to say, first of all, if I select a side pack from the list to the left, the side pack pop over will open. Okay. Put that in there. This apparently failed to save my my thing. So you have a few different approaches. If you're doing something like Trello, sometimes it's best to have your card equals your functionality, and your checklist down here is sort of a list of all the features that are attached to that functionality. For me, I think what I'm going to do instead is set it so I can break it up to, like, let's say individual dev streams or individual work segments. So we're going to change the goal of this first task here to, you can see over here I've got the estimate. That's something I personally do. I try not to have anything that's over an hour and a half in length. So let's just say link side pack pop over to individual side packs. Okay. So if I select a side pack from the list left, the pop over open, tap outside to close, tap edit icon to rename. We're not going to do that right now. I'm going to say show side pack title above grid view. And then, okay, I'm going to create another one up here. That's manage ability to rename or delete side packs. So we're going to say, we're going to take this one here, have edit icon to rename, and then a task below, tap trash can icon to delete spreadsheet after confirm dialog. And if you remember from our first episode, we have the modern UI has that modal dialog, which will do confirmation. So we'll probably finally get a chance to actually implement that rather than keep noticing how it's not the right thing for what we want. Okay, so we got the ability to link the side pack popover. We've got the ability to rename or delete side packs. I also want the ability to let's say stub out project picker, and then I want to stub out level drop down. Okay. So I decided recently that I want the ability to handle multiple projects in this. So it's not just a default single project. If I'm working on like a couple games, I can have more than one. So let's say project picker UI. So all I'm going to do for this right now, because I don't want to go through the whole process of like having you be able to create and manage multiple projects, I'm just going to put a placeholder for it. I'm going to say model out project in data, and I'm going to say include project button on upper right of screen. All right. So I suspect what that'll be is some kind of metadata with a drop down at the top to let you choose or add a new project. But for now, we just want a button, and we just want to prepare the data to handle it. So we've got that one. step out level drop down, model levels in data. So that to me, because I work with data all the time, has a specific meaning. In other words, I know that I have to go into my architecture and into the site engine over here, and I actually have to create models. In other words, C# classes for each of these entities, like levels and projects and things like that. If something doesn't feel explicit to you, if it feels vague, then break it down even further until it is explicit, until you, not just explicit, but until you have a certain amount of, until you kind of know how to do it. If you don't know how to do something, literally create yourself a 45-minute task that says, learn how to do X. Because it's better to do that than it is to actually just give yourself a vague task that you don't really know how to tackle, and that's the kind of thing that makes you procrastinate. So start at level drop down, add drop down element in upper left, drop down choices to dummy data in model. So I'm going to do that with dummy data. Okay, and honestly, that one is probably going to take a little bit longer, so I'm going to say 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now, so one of the things when you're designing any project is think about the requirements. In other words, what is your sort of overall goals? We're not talking about specific UI elements, but what do you want to be able to do with the thing that you're making by the time that you reach your objective? In the case of this basic file structure and image import, I want to be able to save and load all of my data. I want to be able to, first of all, be able to modify all of my data. In other words, create levels, create side packs, create projects. I want to be able to add images from the iPad's photo system. And then at the end of the day, I want to be able to save all of that into the file system. So it won't be any map editor, but I'll be able to add resources, add side items, and all of that stuff. So we may want to even break this down further, because that's a lot for one goal. So we had the level drop down with the project picker UI. We're going to say, I'm actually going to add here another task, which is task out sub items for remaining features in sprint. Now, sprint is an agile term. There's a very formal, explicit way to do it, which is you take 2 weeks and you get X amount of tasks done, and then you review them at the end. I'm not treating it that strictly right now. I'm just saying this is a sprint, but this is actually too much. 0.05. That's actually too much to put in one sprint. So I'm going to change this to 0.03, and I'm going to say basic entity data models and UI integration. All right. In other words, so let's see. You know what? Let's actually do this. Let's add something new. It's like that. Requirements. So I'm creating something that's not going to be treated like a normal task. I'm creating something that I'm actually going to use. I'm actually not sure. It's possible that Markdown works with this. Let's find out. Oops. Yeah, sweet. So apparently to do this, you can do Markdown, which is pretty cool. So requirements for level editor 0.03. So what do we want to do by the end of this? We want to be able to create, rename, and delete projects. We want to be able to create, rename, and delete levels. we want to be able to select individual levels to work on in future sprints. We want to be able to create, delete, and rename side packs. Within a given side pack, we want to be able to create, delete, edit images for, and rename side items. In addition, support types of side items. And this is where we start getting to some of the specific requirements for the kind of side scroll I want to do. So I think I showed you the other day. I actually don't know if I could put these in here or not. They might be on the desktop still. Don't know. Okay, we're not going to worry about that right now. Basically, we want to be able to have walls dynamically. In other words, so I'm not going to deal with any of the rules. I'm not going to deal with actually the logic for displaying these things. But we want to say straight sprite plus elbow sprite. We're going to say bulkhead. Let's say background tiles, single sprite, and overlay tiles, single sprite. Might end up changing that, but basically the way that I see it, and I'll probably try to work through my thoughts on this in the future, is that for my goal for this first time, this first iteration of the editor, is just to be able to create a simple, very blocky spaceship with really not that much in it. I want outer bulkheads, I want floors. Let's actually add that one real quick. Floor tiles, single sprite. So I want to have a background that tiles. That shows like the inside back wall of the spaceship. I want bulkheads on either side that I can take around corners. No T intersections, no cross intersections, just corners. I want floors that are only horizontal. And then I want items like ladders to be placed on top of that back wall. That's my entire goal for the first version of this. Is just to create a simple, very empty sort of spaceship layout using pixel art that I can import directly from my iPad. So we're going to say that one, supports types of side items. I think that's about it. So that's it. That's the requirements for 0.03 as I'm determining it. So task has sub-items for remaining features in Sprint. So what that means is, let's see. That means that because I don't want to deal with all this right now, when I finish these and get to this point, I go up here and I say, okay, so we can check off, see what's remaining here, and then task that out into individual items. So you can see I get really specific, and I take a lot of time doing this. That's partially because doing this is just nice to assign work. I can be like, okay, so if I want to sit down tomorrow, for instance, tomorrow morning, which I'll probably come in and do, I don't have to think about it. I can just jump immediately on, okay, this is the thing I have to do. Like side pack pop over to individual side packs. These are the 3 things I have to do. That's my goal for an hour. It makes it very easy, very easy to jump in. Minimum amount of friction, which is what so much of development is about. It's sort of taking the time up front to build momentum so that you do not have to experience friction when it comes down to actually working on the thing. So that's one reason. The other reason is that tasking it out this explicitly means that you get the chance to think through the entire architecture of your project first. the number of times that doing this has made me realize that I'm going to need something 3 months down the road and then plan for it now, like that can save weeks and weeks of development time. Doing it that way. So it's really, I can't stress enough how important it is to plan things out in advance. You don't have to plan. It's a mistake to plan the entire project because the project's going to change, which is why agile methodology is a thing. That's why it was invented, is because rather than planning out your entire project, you just plan out in detail the next week or two of work. That's it. And that way, at the end of those couple weeks, you can sort of stop and revisit, as I did here, right? I've got all this stuff down here, which I'm going to have to edit out at a future date, plug it into these things. But now I've got my requirements for 0.03, which is this, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to create a section here, level editor 0.06, file structure integration. Okay, let's go like that, 5. And then I'm going to say editor 0.08, basic editing. Let's see, basic renderer support. And so basically now what we can say is okay, so this is my dev plan for now. Next few weeks is I can say, okay, so my first goal is to actually create the data models and the UI for the actual data stuff like side packs and side items. The next step, 0.05, is to make it so I can save all of that to the iPad's hard drive storage. And then the next step after that is the ability to render basic stuff like the walls and things like that. So actually start building out the tile map. That'll be the actual thing you'll see in the final game. And then the final goal here is a basic spaceship build, which is just literally the ability to use those tools I've put together to create a simple multi-level side scroller spaceship. Not doing anything else beyond that. Once I finish that, it'll be time to revisit and figure out what's next. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. Feel free to like and follow, as they say. I'll probably keep doing this on and off for, I honestly don't know how long, but probably a few months. So if it's useful, feel free to come along for the ride. Talk to you soon.